Everybody. I got started a little bit early. I want to give people a chance to give people a few minutes to get in here. I know I usually try to just kind of start right on time and just go right into it, but I figured I'd give people a few minutes um to make their way over. But hope everybody up in Iowa is dealing with their snow okay. Um, we've got, I mean, it's snowing hard here still. I mean, I've got a window right here, and yeah, I mean, shoveled at like I think I shoveled a small path in my driveway at like 8 o'clock this morning for my wife to get her car out, and I think there's probably 6 inches of snow on the ground then, and I would guess we've probably got a few more inches so then, and we'll probably get a few more inches overnight. So, kind of is what it is, I guess. But um, it's kind of funny though because the Iowa State football team would have left. They had left Ames on Friday, and it would have been pretty nice weather, actually nice and dry and sunny, and then they're going to get home to about a foot of snow here in a few hours. So unfortunate, because actually they'll have to drive an hour ish back to Oklahoma City, and then then they fly back out of Oklahoma City. So they'll probably get in sometime tonight, and it'll be dark and they'll have a foot of snow. So that'll be that'll be annoying for some people, especially if there's some freshmen that got here like in the summer and I would guess probably Chase Soul. This. I don't know if this would Chase Soul's first. I guess he was in Colorado before, so this wouldn't be his first snow, but this would be his first big snow in Iowa. So poor Chase Soul and Xavier Townsend and those guys that haven't really been in snow much. They're going to be in for a rude surprise when they get home. But um, if anybody hops in the chat today and they want to hear and they want to jump in and give their thoughts on the game, I will put I'll just do it right now. I'll put the link in the chat. All right. So links in the chat for anybody that wants to call in and give their thoughts on the game. And obviously, I don't really have a time limit on anybody. If you've got a couple questions, we can have a conversation. However, it is now 2:30, so I think we will get rolling. So welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Iowa State Cyclones Live here on the Voice of College Football Network post-game show. As Iowa State has beaten Oklahoma State on the road down in Stillwater 20-13 in the season finale. Obviously, this game, just given how the season has gone, this game didn't mean as much for Iowa State as we were kind of hoping it would. I think we were hoping it wouldn't mean anything because we obviously would have already clinched its spot in the Big 12 championship already. But fortunately, that's not how it went, and that's how it's probably never going to go. But even if you were 9-2 or 10-1 at this point, and you had a shot at getting to the Big 12 title with the win, then you feel better about this game, and maybe you're healthier and all this. But just given the situation, this game was a classic. Get in, do the minimum you required to win, then get out type of situation. There wasn't really any. They didn't really get aggressive at all. They didn't take basically any shots downfield. They pretty much just ran the ball, threw the ball laterally. They really didn't try to push the ball downfield basically at all. Very, very conservative game plan on offense. Defense pretty much did its job for the most part outside of the one scoring drive, but they were, the one scoring drive before half was pretty much a result of Oklahoma State randomly kind of out of nowhere pulling together the Zane Flores throwing like the best ball of his entire life on that fourth down play and that skinny post that the receiver caught. I mean, he was well covered, and it was just a basically an impossible play to defend. So, and that's what it eventually ended up at letting them get there. I don't know if I'm reading too much into the offensive stuff. Like I said, it was a super vanilla game plan. It was clear that the running game was the game plan for today, and that's just kind of what it was. Let me pull up some stats here. So Rocco finishes very pedestrian, 9 of 18, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. There was a couple of spots his receivers dropped a couple passes. Rocco was fine. I didn't see anything too much from him. Had a couple good rushes though. Carson Hansen finishes with 109 yards on 24 carries. Sama gets 12 carries for 87 yards, including 140-yard score. Rocco had a couple nice scrambles as well. Overall, just another game, another game by the run, just another really good game on the ground for Iowa State. 50 carries, 5 yards a carry. That's kind of the 50-ish carries, 4 to 5 yards a carry has been kind of the recipe for Iowa State for the last couple months, basically. And, for the most part, it's allowed them to be in games that they should win. Passing game didn't do much, and Rock only threw for 113 yards. Chase Soul had the lone touchdown, had a couple nice plays, but also had a drop. I think Brett Eskilson only caught the one pass for 19 yards. Yeah, this was not a fun game to watch, only because it was like Oklahoma State is really, really bad. Their defense is actually like respectable enough, but their offense is an abomination. And giving up only the one touchdown feels like too much. And there was a few times where Iowa State did a lot of things that they just didn't need to do, or they just they kept Oklahoma State never really threatened anything, but they Iowa State kept them at arm's length, but never more than that. Any chance that they had to really kind of put the game away and just end it, they just never did it. And we'll talk about one of the reasons there. So the holding penalties did hurt, but there were some that were stupid. Yeah, the officiating had missed they had a kind of a little bit of a rough day. It wasn't like horrendous, but as far as the holding penalties go, they gave Oklahoma State Iowa State committed a phantom defensive holding call that allowed an Oklahoma State drive to continue. Oh my gosh, yes. The broadcast today was some special kind of terrible. I realized this game was always going to be like the lowest on the totem pole for the Big 12 because Oklahoma State is so bad. And, I would say it's not really, I would say it's banged up. It was always going to get like the D squad or the F squad from ESPN. But this ESPNU broadcast was genuinely one of the worst I've ever seen, from the camera work to the graphics to the audio to the play-by-play and the color commentator. I mean, it was a disaster all around. I mean, you had the announcer, the play-by-play. They're doing the pregame stuff where they're like up in the booth and they're like, what do they need to do to win today? La la la, or whatever. And to name off, I would say it's running back duo, Sama and Hansen. He had to look down at it, and you could tell right away that it was going to be a rough broadcast, because during that, he, to remember what the name of the running backs were, he had to look down and figure out that it was Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. And then immediately the next sentence after that, the color commentator calls him Samu. And it's like, you do that. And then the play-by-play referred to them as the Hawkeyes at one point. The camera guy was clearly about a dozen beers deep before this game even started. Crazy panning, zoom outs. The guy was completely unable to follow the ball. I mean, it was unbelievable. Most of the game, the first down line on the broadcast was not visible until basically the snap. It was, it was unbelievable how bad. I mean, it wasn't just a bad broadcast, but it was an unprofessional and embarrassing broadcast for ESPN. And unfortunately, the very few people that could hold ESPN accountable for something like that, like the Big 12, getting on them saying, hey, you're producing a really really substandard product here. They're not going to do it because ESPN has a lot of the cards in their hand. If the Big 12 could somehow negotiate their way to never have a game on ESPN ever again, on any ESPN platform ever again, that would raise the value of the television broadcasts by 100. Oh my gosh, the punts. I've seen a couple comments about the punts. So the punt return thing is an actual problem at this point. I remember after the BYU game, I think it was during the BYU game, the announcer had met, because I was watching it. I can't remember exactly how the timeline exactly went, but anyways, the muffed punt happened in BYU, and I think it was after the game. Um, one of BYU's beat reporters asked one of their players about it, and he said that they had scouted that Iowa State has trouble on punt returns and that they were vulnerable to being blocked into one. And I thought that was really interesting because one, I don't know if I'd ever heard, like, obviously, like that type of scouting has always existed, but like you don't really ever hear about it in like post game reports about, like, oh, we scouted that, we could force Iowa State into muffing a punt. And why that was not an immediate red flag for the staff saying, hey, we need to fix this shit, I don't know. But it's happened multiple times this season where you give up you just give up a really dumb, I think is that the fourth or fifth time that's happened this season? You just give them the ball. You just give them like 60 free yards because you just can't be bothered, because your blockers can't be bothered to pay attention where the fucking football is. Now, I will say, I do think on that one, I kind of believe that might have been a communication error on the part of Aiden Flora, because they were setting that up they're clearly setting it up for a return. Robbins was the guy that the ball bounced off of, and he was one. He had his back to the play, and he was ended up being a little too close to it. But they were setting up for a return, but like at the last second, Aiden Flora decided not to field it and let it bounce. And I think at somewhere in there, between the moment he decided to not catch the ball, he decided to not field the ball. Between that moment and when it hit Robbins on the bounce, something was not properly communicated, that a return was no longer the play, that Aiden was not going to field it. We can't really tell unless we're on the field. That we don't know if Aiden like screamed at the top of his lungs saying, hey, I'm not catching this, or something like that, so that his blockers knew to get the hell out of the way. But something happened in there where I don't think it was like Robin's fault. Like that, I don't think it was that kid's fault that, he was doing what he was told to do, which is set up a block in a certain spot to set up a return. And he was expecting Aiden Flora to field that. And until the last second, Flora was there to field it. And then, like I said, right at the last second, backed away. And I think that is where things got messed up, because now he was going to let it bounce, even though the play was for him to field it and then return it. So I'd be curious to know like exactly what happened there, like what I want to know about this punt return situation is, what does their communication structure look like there? Whose job is it to, was everybody doing their job up until the bounce? What does the communication structure look like as far as like whose job it is to say, whose job it is to inform people when things are changing? Naturally, I would think it would be Aiden Flora's job to say like, hey, I'm fair. Like when he is planning on letting it bounce, that he needs some sort of verbal cue, or I don't think a hand signal is enough, because especially on punt returns, there's too much chaos going around, and it's you can't guarantee that people are going to see that hand signal, and you can't necessarily guarantee that they're going to hear it, but they have a better chance of hearing some sort of verbal cue than they do of a hand signal. So I think I want to know, is there some sort of like, does Iowa State have pineapples? Like, do they have a safe word there to say, hey, I'm not fielding this thing, and everybody needs to get away? Because right now Iowa State needs, it seems to me as though there currently does not exist a mechanism by which the players can communicate, bail, get out of the way so that this thing doesn't hit us. It doesn't seem like that mechanism exists right now, and that needs to be addressed. And that may not be the only part of the thing, but to me, that's like, without changing any of the scheme, personnel, blocking, any of that, without changing any of the X's and O's of this, simply installing some sort of scheme or some sort of mechanism by which the punt returner can say, bail, and everybody gets out. Everybody gets out of the way. They let their blocks go. They they completely just bail on their blocks and they get out of the way. That's like that kind of thing. That's what you need to, and maybe maybe like every game you change it, or every couple games you change the word. So that way, you know, you don't call bail, bail, bail against Iowa. And then they call Kansas State and say, hey, by the way, when Iowa State wants to do this, they yell bail, bail, bail. So if you run down there and your guys yell bail, everybody's going to leave your blocks and you can smoke the returner, something like that. That's kind of like the next level of gamesmanship. But that communication structure needs to be adjusted, I think, where the returner, who has the best eyes on the play, he can see where a lot of the blockers are. He can see how things are developing in front of him. So I think he needs to be the one in charge, where he can call out and say, this is what's happening, like return, bail, 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 whatever you want your code words to be. But something needs to get figured out there. I think this one was a communication issue, but I'd be curious to see how they address this in the offseason. Like, are they going to have another special teams analyst, or are they going to bring on a coordinator, or, however that's going to go? We'll see. But either way, it's got to get fixed right now, because it's bad. I mean, it's giving you can't win the hidden yards, you can't win the margins and all that when you're giving opponents 50 free yards because you muffed a punt. It's just a really tough way to win football games. Fortunately, Oklahoma State's offense is just beyond pitiful. I mean, their running game was 23 carries for 27 yards. It's really bad. Like, they did nothing on the ground whatsoever. So, it's just if Oklahoma State was any more competent on offense, this game might have gotten a lot more interesting. But they did what they needed. I would say did what they needed to do to win, but it was certainly not impressive by any stretch. So there was one Oklahoma State player, specifically number 17 Freeman. He was the one that picked up the holding call earlier. So Oklahoma State had gotten a pass out to the flats and converted a first down, and they picked up a holding call and an unsportsmanlike. I want to say they gave the holding call to 17, but him and John Klosterman apparently had this beef because they were yapping at each other all day. I'm not sure exactly what the situation there, if it was truly just an in-game thing where they were just kind of going back and forth and whatever it is, but like those two interacted a few times, and every time, whoever made the play got up and started immediately getting in the face of somebody else. And that 17 Freeman also was starting shit some other places too. So I kind of think he might just be a shithead, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, linebacker. Yeah, Fred, the linebackers were awesome today. Caleb Bacon specifically had a great day. Let me pull up his defensive stats here. Caleb Bacon, 7 tackles, 3 sacks. 3 sacks. And it didn't get statted as a breakup, but he did break up a pass. He broke up a pass there. I want to say it was in the fourth quarter. Did a really nice job. Cooper Ebel and Caleb Bacon. Cooper Ebel, Caleb Bacon, Caleb Brzina, 9 tackles, 7 tackles, 3 tackles respectively. 3 sacks by Brzina, or not by Bacon, not by Brzina. But then you got a quarterback hurry by each of those 3 linebackers. Thought they did a nice job. Shout out to Caden Mattson, who was asked to come in because Carson Van Dinter was hurt today, and then he got in and he got hurt, but he eventually figured it out. Drew Surges had a pick today, so that was awesome. Obviously forced 3 fumbles today though, because Drew Surges not only picked off a pass, but he peanut punched. Didn't peanut punch. He overhand punched a ball out of the running back's hands early. Caleb Bacon forced a fumble on one of those sacks. Caleb Brzina forced a fumble as well. There wasn't one play earlier in the game where I thought they forced and recovered another fumble, because a few Cyclones got up and were pointing that direction. I was surprised they didn't even stop and review it, but did a good job forcing 3 fumbles and recovering a couple of those, and then picking the one pass off. I think we're all, that's the kind of stuff you need to do to win on the road when your offense isn't like high flying. Overall though, I thought the defensive performance was good enough. There was a couple spot. I don't know. There wasn't really any spot where Oklahoma State, like they never really threatened. They never, there was never a situation where like, oh, they got to hang on for this type of thing. They do still need to keep working on the, allowing the other team to score immediately after you score type of thing. That's a little bit of a problem, but it's kind of a thing. Where do you think Iowa State will be for a bowl game? Hopefully for them to be in Arizona. So this is a great question. This is kind of like, I guess this is kind of like the next question for Iowa State. Your regular season's over. And now you're talking about recruiting, you're talking about the portal, you're talking about bowl season. So right now, I think as far as the bowl game goes, right now, my prediction would be the Rate Bowl in Phoenix. I think the Liberty Bowl, I don't think the Liberty Bowl is really a possibility. Like, I think they're going to, I think the bowls talk to each other probably and say, the Camping World Bowl, or not the Camping World, what the hell is it now? The fucking Pop-Tart Bowl. I should know that. I have a Pop-Tart Bowl hat right here. It's the one I normally wear on the stream. But the Pop-Tart Bowl talks to the Alamo Bowl, the Liberty Bowl talks to the Rate Bowl, and the Houston and the Texas Bowl and the Heart of Dallas Bowl and all this. I think they all talk to each other. I don't think Memphis wants to have Iowa State down there again. I don't think Iowa State doesn't have enough wins to get down to the Pop-Tart Bowl anyway. They technically do, I guess, but they're not going to go to the Pop-Tart Bowl again. I think the Rate Bowl makes a lot of sense. They're going to I think they'll play the Rate Bowl. I think they'll play a Big Ten team. Right now, I really think that the drain is starting to circle around Iowa State against Nebraska in the Rate Bowl just a little bit. I think that would be really interesting. I'm trying to think who else would even be in the neighborhood. I for what it's worth, I don't think they would put us in a bowl game with Iowa. Because you're going to have Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon in the playoff for sure. We'll see what they do with Michigan. They're 9-3. If Michigan gets in, Texas is probably in. If Texas doesn't get in, Michigan's probably not in. But Texas has the win over number 2. But anyways, at minimum, you got 3 playoff teams there for the Big Ten. I would say I don't love Michigan getting in, but we'll see. So after that, you're talking about Washington is an option there. So you've got a few teams here at 8-4, 7-5. You got Iowa's at 8-4, Washington's 8-3 currently. I think they play later today. Northwestern's 6-5. You won't play them. Illinois 7-4. Minnesota's 6-5. Nebraska's 7-5. I don't think. I think the idea of putting Iowa State and Nebraska in a bowl game would be very appealing to the Rate Bowl. Both those fan bases will travel to that game. It's an old Big 12 game. They can kind of brand it as an old Big 12 game basically. It's a now dormant rivalry. I think that would be. I don't know. It depends on what the conferences are thinking. Maybe they'll just say, "Oh, Iowa State and Illinois are 2 engineering schools in neighboring states. Maybe they belong together." Iowa State and Wisconsin, Iowa State and Washington would be a weird bowl game. I don't know if they would do that, but that would. It's not impossible, but it would be like a weird matchup. I don't know. But I think if you're the Rate Bowl, Iowa State and Nebraska in a bowl game feels like that's something I would want to get on my schedule. You're going to fill up your seats like that. That game will sell. Phoenix is easy to get to from both Omaha and Des Moines. And it is, I guess maybe the date might theoretically be a problem because I think it's on the 26th. Yeah, it's on the 26th. So it's the day after Christmas. So for that reason, maybe you're a little bit concerned, but that's independent of fan bases. Any fan base has, that's a factor for any fan base. So at that point, you just take the ones that most reliably travel. Iowa State, Iowa, and Nebraska all reliably travel to bowl games. Well, We assume Nebraska will. They haven't really been to a lot of bowl games recently, but we can assume that Nebraska will travel. They typically send fans to away stadiums fairly regularly. And now if it comes down to Iowa State and Nebraska in a bowl game, that'll be interesting because Nebraska's kind of bad right now, but Iowa State's banged up all to hell. It'd be a fun chance for Matt Campbell to get revenge on not revenge, but just to kind of beat Matt Rule again. That'd be a fun little rivalry there. So I right now, if I were a betting man, I think if I were the rate, I think Iowa State will end up in the rate bowl. And if I were the rate bowl, I would take Iowa State and Nebraska. I think that makes a lot of sense as far as just money, just to get interest in the game. You can, like I said, you can sell it as an old Big 12 game. You're gonna fill the seats. I absolutely think Iowa State, Nebraska is a great move for the rate bowl. So because I believe Iowa State will end up in the rate bowl, give me Iowa State versus Nebraska in Phoenix. I'm gonna mark down that as my official prediction. Though you could get it, you could convince me, you could talk me into Iowa State and Illinois, maybe Iowa State and Illinois in the rate bowl, which would be absolute hell on earth for my good friend Marchie Murdoch, since he's an alumnus of both schools. But yeah, I would say that's where it's at right now. So, couple other things. Yeah, literally anywhere. I don't think we're going to be in Memphis, and I don't think we would be in contention to be in Memphis, but definitely not Memphis. Iowa State versus Minnesota, the Jack Trice Revenge Bowl would be kind of funny. I don't think. See, Minnesota is only 6-5, so even if they win, they're only 7-5, which I guess would be Nebraska's record. But actually, funny enough, the last time Iowa State played in Phoenix was in what was then the Insight Bowl, which when they played Minnesota in 2009. Yeah, so yeah, we're not going to get bowl games till next week, about a week from now, and I think it's Sunday. I think it's usually the Sunday after conference championships is usually when we get bowl games. So we'll find out. We'll find out then. If it's Nebraska in Phoenix, might try to make it work. We'll see. I don't know. It being the day after Christmas is tough though. I'd pretty much have to fly out probably the night before, because I think it's a 2:30. It's a 2:30 kick on the 26th. So I guess theoretically, if you caught an early flight out of Cedar Rapids, maybe like if you caught an early flight out of Cedar Rapids and got to Phoenix by like 10 or something like that, maybe you can make that work. But overall, though, I think anywhere. I think I would say we'll end up in Phoenix either way. But the next focus here, really, though, beyond the bowl game, is transfer portal recruiting class. You know, they did get a few recruits this week. They flipped 2 guys from Colorado State. They flipped a receiver and a tight end from Colorado State. Flipped a safety from Army. They flipped a defensive lineman, or they just got his commitment from a defensive lineman. We'll see what they prioritize in the portal. We got a question here. I know it's not Iowa State, but do you think BYU gets screwed by the CFP committee and gets left out? So, before I answer that question, what does the BYU UCF score look like? 38-20. Okay, so BYU's running away with it now. Because it was 17-14 at halftime, I think. So it's good that BYU is running away with that one. Right now, I would say if BYU wins the Big 12 title, I think they get. I think the Big 12 gets 2 in. But even if they finish 11-1, which they're going to finish 11-1, if they lose that Big 12 title game and it's not like really close, I think there's a very low percentage they get in, because I think the Big 12. I honestly believe that the committee would put 9-3 Texas in over 11-2 BYU, which sucks, because BYU would be then getting punished for. They would be getting punished for going to their conference championship game. But even if you say like that, the conference championship game loss doesn't matter. You say, okay, well, they're 11-1. I kind of wonder if the committee will put in 9-3 Michigan or 9-3 Texas over an 11-1 BYU team, even though that's complete and total crap. But it is what it is. It's a bunch of bullshit. At some point, someone's going to have to call them on some antitrust legislation. It's garbage. Who do you think will transfer out at Iowa State? Excellent question. Well, we got an answer on one of those names today, which is Josh Patterson. If you remember, 1 second. If you remember this week on Down the Pipe, well, it was last week, I should say, on the Nightcap, Down the Pipe and Night Light, all that, we had talked about, if you have guys that have like one redshirt game left, but 2 games to play, do you sit them? Do you play them? Whatever it is. And Josh Patterson was the big one there because he had played fairly well, but he was out of redshirt games for the last 2 games. So it's like, do you burn the redshirt to get 2 more games out of him? Do you sit him? Well, he was held out last week on the basis of injury. I don't know. I mean, now I don't know if he's actually injured or whatever, but he announced today, or not, I guess, sorry, nothing was actually announced, but someone confirmed that he is no longer listed on the roster. So everyone, I think it was confirmed actually that he is transferring. Josh Patterson is transferring out. Can't necessarily blame him too much. He put enough good tape up in those 4 games to get a look by a G5 school. He's not going to go to Power 5 school, but like a G5 school, like a Rice or something like that. Like he absolutely could go there. Just with a little bit of game tape he's got there. But if we're being real, I mean, what were his odds of playing outside of special teams next season? You're bringing back Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams and Trey Bell and Quentin Taylor and David Coffey. You're also bringing in new guys. You're bringing in some freshmen. You got some freshmen coming off of red shirts. The safeties are getting all their people back. So it's not like he's going back to safety because you're getting Jamison Patton. You're getting Kajan Cummings-Coleman. You're getting Marcus Neal. You're getting Drew Surges. You're getting Cam Smith. You're getting a lot of names back. And plus you're adding more into the fold too. Carson Van Dinter's back. You got more freshmen coming in too. So like, where was the playing time for him next season? Because he wasn't going to be in the top 5 corners. I'd say 5. I think right now he would be the 6th corner on the depth chart. If you moved him to safety, he's maybe the 5th safety, maybe. And that's not including the possibility that any freshmen are particularly good. I don't know. Can players enter the portal with the only window in January? I mean, I think that's technically when they enter the portal, but they can like go to the portal. I mean, they can start telling teams that they're available. They just can't like officially enter their name into the transfer portal until then, I think. But I mean, without a doubt, people will be, saying I plan to enter the transfer portal and do this, and then say I'm committing to this team and will be signing during the transfer portal window, whatever. Yeah, Big 99 needs to either be the replacement for Neal or learn him some nose tackle. Okay, yeah. Or learn him some nose tackle, put him at down position. Interior defensive line is horrifying right now. So he's talking about Vaea Ikakula, which honestly, Vaea Ikakula might be my new favorite player on the entire football team right now. I just kind of love how he plays. He plays hard. He plays fast. He's huge. It's great. Whether or not they use him, I from what I understand is like he's basically a shoe-in to start on the interior of the offensive line next year. Like my guess is your interior offensive line is Trevor Burr, Brennan Black, Vaea Ikakula. Like that's got to be I'd assume that would be your interior offensive line. Will he play both ways and play some defensive line? I don't know. I mean, from what I understand is like he could do that. Like they could put him at nose tackle and he would be good. He's going to force his way onto the field no matter what. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with him. If you feel like, because like the offensive line has got some other guys, cool. There's a couple other guys I had in my head. Austin Barrett. There's a few other guys in that room that could potentially be like ready to move up and get some more play and get some playing time and be ready to be in the mix for a starting rotation spot. If you feel as though he is not if you feel as though you can you can put together a good offensive line without him, then I think you put him at defensive tackle. I mean, it just depends. You play via Ikakula wherever he's best. If he is best on the offensive line, you play him on the offensive line. If he is best as a defensive lineman, you play him on the defensive line. Unless if they're basically equal, you play him wherever you have the biggest need. If you think you can get by without him on the offensive line, not just get by, but if you feel like you can succeed without him on the offensive line, then you play him at nose tackle. If you think that if it's hard to find defensive line in the portal, like they're going to have to develop people like Zamir Hawk and Elijah Carnell have to be like, they have to get it, figured out basically. They have to develop those guys. I'm going to pull up, I just want to try to see who else on that defensive line will be back / can be developed. Just want to make sure I'm not missing somebody. Apparently my browser's taking forever. Anyways, 2013. So the defensive line is still going to have to be, development based. They're going to you're just obviously just doesn't have the horses in NIL to be able to, it just doesn't have the funding to be able to get an elite player on the defensive line. Cause that's a premium money position for college football. So, but they can get, they can get serviceable offensive line. Just the defensive line is tough. So if you think you can get a transfer offensive lineman, or you think that what you have in the room is enough, then I think you look at putting Ikakula on the defensive line and seeing what he can do. Defensive line, and then if he makes sense as an extra lineman on a heavy running package, bring him in for that type of thing. Like he can do that. He can play nose tackle and then just a few offensive snaps here and there. But I don't think, I think you have a better shot of getting a serviceable transfer at offensive line than you do on defensive line. So defensive line, you've got Elijah Carnell. We'll see how he develops. BJ Carter, as I know, is a guy that they like. I don't know if Markel Chapman. I think Markel Chapman already transferred. But he didn't play at all. I'm having to pull up the 247 Iowa State roster because Iowa State's website is just not responding right now. It's kind of crazy. Everything else works just fine. I mean, because you're losing Thomas McDonough, Miles Mendezoon. So Kamari Moore, hopefully maybe if he can work out, if Kamari Moore pans out, Vontroy Malone, Jack Limbaugh is a guy that I know that they want to try to do something with. Samir Hawk, Jace Gilbert, Kenny Eziogu, BJ Carter. You're going to have to develop those guys. But if Vaea Ikakula is good enough to be the best nose tackle out of that bunch, and on the offensive line, you've got Austin Barrett, he's already been a backup. He's already been a backup left tackle. Your interior is going to be Brendan Black, Trevor Bohr, and maybe Vaea Ikakula. But let's say you take him out of here. Who knows if Dalen Hazard's ever going to play? He's been hurt forever. Dontrell Holt is a guy I know that they like. You may see Dontrell Holt. He's 6'5", 315. I would guess he's probably a guard, but I'm not entirely sure. Cool. 6'6", 290. That's a tackle all day and night. Sean Perkins, Carson Rhodes, Garrett Rutledge, few of these guys, we'll see what happens with them. Will Tompkins from Cedar Falls, he's another one. We'll see how they develop these guys. Right now, I think you feel right now better about the development on the offensive line than you do the defensive line. This is an off-season conversation, and I'm hesitant to even say anything, but right now, Eli Rashid needs to get better at developing these guys. There's a few of these guys that, Dominic Orange has been great. He's developed into a very good player. He's better. It seems like Eli Rashid is good at developing one guy on the team and then moving to the next guy. he had Will McDonald. Will McDonald developed. He was great. It was a great job by Eli Rashid to develop Will McDonald. Did a great job to develop Dom Orange. But in the time that Dom Orange has developed, Ikeni Eziogu has not. And part of it, that's not necessarily just the position groups. That's not just necessarily the position coach's fault. I mean, it could just be Ikeni Eziogu. Maybe he's just not as good as he looks like he should be, or maybe he's not putting in the work he should be, or maybe it's just something hasn't clicked. Whatever it is, there could be a million things. But what I do know is that Ikeni Eziogu has not developed. Samuel Same never developed. There's too much on this defensive line that just feels like it's recruiting. It's some combination of recruiting that isn't. They're just not finding the studs that they need to find, and some of these guys just aren't developing like I think we were hoping they would develop. Oh yeah, I would say Cyclones.com is just down. I just got a 504 gateway timeout. It's kind of wild. So we will see what is going to go on with this. Valle Ikakula was Edgefield. So Track says Edgefield's a little bit better with Gilbert and Verdon. Jace Gilbert seems like he's going to be a good player. Verdon maybe. There's potential there for sure, but right now, like, you got to figure out the nose tackle spot. If it's Kamari Moore, if it's I don't know. If it's some combination of Zamir Hawk, Elijah Cornell, and Kamari Moore, we'll see how that all shakes out. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But the nice thing is that you have a very good group of linebackers and a very good group of defensive backs coming back next year, so that can help take the pressure off of this thing. But the defensive line has got to continue to improve. Maybe hopefully Vontroy Malone can step in and be the guy next year. We'll see. But do we got any other questions? Otherwise, we'll probably get ready to wrap her up here. We'll talk a little bit more on Tuesday. Once we get full results, we can if we get a little bit more clarity on the bowl situation, we'll find out. Oh, I didn't even actually really answer the question earlier on who's transferring, who I think will transfer out. You'll see some like guys further down the list that'll transfer out. Like, we already know Josh Patterson's gone. I mean, maybe you see like Cam Smith leave because he was a junior this year, but he's gonna be a senior next year. Hasn't really played a ton. Maybe you see Cam Smith leave. On the defensive line, I don't know if you really see anybody that's I would guess you'll see leave. Linebackers, maybe. I mean, maybe. I could see maybe Samuel Same. Maybe. Rylan Barnes. I don't know. There's a few of these guys like it would just, Danny Inglis. I don't know if any of these guys are gonna transfer. Like, there's a lot of these guys. They play a lot of linebackers. So like I think most of these guys will stay because they're gonna play. Offensive line, I don't know if I see anybody because there's 3 spots. There's 3 spots on the offensive line opening up for next year. So like I would be like, if you're not sticking around to try to be one of 3 offensive linemen to get a new job, like I think that would be soft. My guess is Jaden Jackson, the running back, will probably transfer. Again, I want to clarify, I don't have like intel on any of these people. I'm literally just speculating. Tight end, I think you're fine. Receiver, I guess maybe the one that you would wonder about. I don't know, but I don't know if I would even say that he would, but maybe the one name I would wonder about is Xavier Townsend, just because we haven't seen him for a month. Now we know that his wrist is hurt and he's going to need surgery and all that. If he would truly just been hurt, then that's fine. But I kind of wonder, I guess. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to see I don't see a bunch of names on here that I would expect to be transferring out. Who will sit out of a bowl game? All the seniors. I think there isn't really any seniors on this list right now that are the one name that I think will sit out is Dom Orange. I would I mean, if I were Dom Orange, I would consider sitting out. He's probably a day 2 pick at worst. I don't think he needs more tape, and if he's banged up, he just needs to be done and not play. I would guess Dom Orange doesn't play. Of the other senior, like I don't think Iowa really has any other guys on the roster that are like so good that they need to sit out of the bowl game. Like I don't know if there's really any other does I was even have any other seniors that like are going to be like high draft picks. I think Dom Orange is the only one that's got a shot to be like a day 2 or better pick. So I would guess Dom Orange sits out, but I would think that pretty much everybody else would play. So I would say it should have most of its full defensive roster available to it, of its full healthy roster that's available to it. But healthy, who knows? How is Bacon come back next year? I thought he was a senior. He has a medical red shirt for last year. So yeah, Caleb Bacon is coming back from he's going to have he got a medical red shirt exemption. So he'll be back again next year. Next year, the linebackers are going to be awesome. Caleb Brazina, Cooper Ebel, Caleb Bacon, Mason Miller, John Klosterman, Will Hawthorne. Have a good group next year. They're going to be really good. So, do we have any? I'll give you guys like another 30 seconds to a minute to ask any more questions if you've got any more. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap her up for this week. Like I said, not a lot to talk about. The game is a very vanilla game plan for Iowa State. Just go in, do your shit, get out of there. 48 carries, 4.9 yards a carry. Pretty much did their 46 carries for 4.9 yards carry. Pretty much did their thing. The only catastrophic mistake was the muffed punt, which I kind of talked about earlier, as far as how I think that needs to be addressed. Fred, so we're going to keep both backup QBs. Yeah. Mansky already, I mean, both of those guys know that Rocco's done next year. So the year after that, both of them will have eligibility, and now Moberly will only have a year or 2. But he is potentially a starter. I mean, both of them are going to be in the role in the hunt for starting quarterback for the 2027 season. So you wouldn't transfer. Remember, he's around about Craven, Arkansas. No, they are not going around. That is a bunch of that's a bunch of Arkansas boosters making bullshit up. From everything I've heard is that it's going to be Alex Golish, former Iowa State, former Iowa State tight ends coach, that'll be headed to Fayetteville. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Where the Campbell stuff might have come up is if someone said they called Matt Campbell, but they called Matt Campbell to get like a reference for Alex Golish, not for just like not to call. I mean, they may have said, here's how the conversation absolutely could have gone. Hey, Matt, this is Arkansas AD, whoever the fuck. We have an open football coaching position. He's like, yeah. He's like, are you interested? Not really. What do you think about Alex Golish? Good guy. That's like that. The Arkansas athletic director absolutely could have called Matt Campbell to get an opinion on Alex Golish. Right now, I would be beyond shocked. No. The rumors are not real. That's not a thing. I'm not trying to gaslight you and say you're crazy for wondering, but no, that's a bunch of Arkansas boosters making shit up. That they all think they know what they're talking about. They don't know shit. Don't listen to them. If I were a betting man right now, it's going to be Alex Golish that goes to Fayetteville. And if you have been a listener of Down the Pipe and Natty Light, or more specifically, if you've been a listener / watcher of the Nightcap over on Wide Right and Natty Light, you would know that Dylan Sainer and I have been both talking about, since the day Sam Pittman got fired, we both said, I would love Alex Golish to go to Fayetteville. And we both thought Alex Golish would go to Fayetteville to fill that Arkansas job. It's not official yet. South Florida still got a game to play, but right now, that would be my bet in favorite is Alex Golish to go to Arkansas. So I would not pay one bit of rumors. I would not pay one bit of attention to any sort of Campbell to Arkansas rumors. That's no. Plus, for what it's worth, Will Slagle, the offensive lineman that committed in the tailgate lots last weekend, in his tweet, or in the tweet about it, like the announcement about it, he was quoted as saying Campbell and Clanton aren't going anywhere for a long time, aren't going anywhere for a long, long time. Granted, he could just be saying that. Campbell could be blowing smoke up his ass. I don't believe that is what's happening here. I don't think Campbell to be that kind of, oh yeah, I'll be around forever, and then just leaves. Like, I don't think he's going to pull a Chiswick or anything like that. So, yeah, I feel confident in saying that Campbell is not going to be the head coach at Arkansas next year. If I'm wrong, I guess it is what it is. You know, clock's wrong twice a day. But, you know, it's I wouldn't dedicate any brain power to thinking about that. So, all right, everybody. I think we're going to wrap her up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will be back on Tuesday for the normal weekly show. And then we'll see next weekend what kind of bowl game Iowa State gets put in. So, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys again next time on Iowa State Cyclones Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend. If you're up in the upper Midwest and you're getting pelted by snow, stay safe, stay inside. Make sure you scoop your driveway, all that good stuff. Later.